Hey there, welcome back. So I overheard an interesting conversation on the dive boat this weekend, and I thought it might help if I clarified a few things for BlackTip owners in the UAE. First, why does Dive Xtras say to always remove the batteries when your BlackTip is not in use? And second, how much runtime would you lose if you left the batteries installed? The answer to the first question is in the user manual. And it says, never store your batteries inside the scooter. The small power draw will eventually drain the batteries and potentially damage them. The manual also says, battery removal minimizes risk of inadvertent operation. For example, if you are transporting your BlackTip across any great distance with the batteries installed, there is a small chance that the trigger may receive a double tap input and then remain pressed down, which would obviously start the motor. Operating the motor outside of water will cause it to overheat, which may damage your BlackTip or even start a fire. So it makes perfect sense to remove the batteries before any kind of unattended transport. Now let's return to that first sentence. Never store your batteries inside your scooter. The small power draw will eventually drain the batteries and potentially damage them. What does this mean? Well, as you know, your BlackTip does not have an on-off switch. Instead, it uses double taps on the trigger to turn on and start moving. Now, not having a physical on-off switch is good design. It reduces a common failure point, both electronically and hermetically. By that I mean the switch cannot fail because it doesn't exist, right? And that the DPV housing, okay, doesn't have to worry about leaking from where the switch would be mounted. However, the lack of a physical on-off switch means that as soon as you install the batteries, your BlackTip's motherboard is live and it starts drawing a small current while it monitors the trigger for your command. Now, this small current will over time deplete your batteries to the point where they are permanently damaged. How much time will it take to permanently damage your batteries? Well, that's difficult to answer because it depends on several factors. For example, how much charge is left in the batteries? Okay, how cold is it going to be during storage? And how old are the batteries and what is their condition, right? So this is why Dive Xtras advises to always remove the batteries when your DPV is not in use. Clearly then, long-term storage with the batteries installed is certainly something to be avoided. But now let's look at that second question. How much runtime would you lose if you left the batteries installed? Let's say you prepped your BlackTip the night before your dive and left it there with the batteries installed. Knowing that there is a small constant current, how would this affect your dive in the morning? Well, I decided to measure the current draw while the BlackTip is in sleep mode, waiting for a trigger command. right? This is the BlackTip in sleep mode with the batteries installed. So my measurement showed that the sleeping current peaked at about 20 milliamps and then stabilized at around 10 milliamps. For my calculations, I opted to use the higher number, for added conservatism. And this is what I got. 20 milliamps of sleep current overnight for 10 hours will drain about 200 milliamps from the batteries. For your BlackTip running at cruise speed, 200 milliamps equates to about 2 minutes of runtime. Now, with larger batteries, 2 minutes is not really an issue. The 9 ampere hour batteries should give you about an hour and a half of cruise runtime. So losing 2 minutes is not a big deal. However, with smaller batteries, such as the 5 ampere hour, the loss amounts to about 5%, which could be important depending on your dive profile and how much safety reserve you want to surface with. At XR Scuba, I always prep the DPVs the night before the dive and install the batteries in the morning just before we leave for the harbor. I would advise you to do the same. Do remember, this video is for informative purposes only. It is always safer to remove batteries from any device when it's not in use, and it is usually best to follow the manufacturer's instructions. I guess that's it. I will see you in the water. Happy scootering.